Welcome to the Indie Musician Summit 2021 with your host, Kate Westwood, brought to you by Westwood Management.
Welcome back to the Indie Musician Summit. I'm your host. My name is Kate, and I have a fabulous speaker for you today who has just a wealth of experience and understanding and perspective around the music industry here in Australia, but I'm sure that will translate to whatever country you're in if you're wanting to make music right now. I wanted to welcome Andrea Smith.
Hi Kate, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing so good. It was wonderful to wake up this morning and thought, great, I'm going to connect with Andrea and hear just all the wonderful things she has to say. So, Andrea, why don't you take some time to introduce yourself and just let the summit attendees know a little bit about who you are and how you came to be where you are today.
Hi everyone. It's great to meet you. I'm Andrea Smith. I run a business called Applause Genie, and I've been working in the creative sector for pretty much my whole life. I started as a graphic designer, hated my job, quit my job, ended up running a music venue, and then went on to run a few more music venues, manage artists and events. So my first venue was, if you're a Brisbane person or you've toured in Brisbane, you may know the fairly iconic heritage listed venue called the Orient Hotel. So when I ran that, we were very lucky to have a point in time in the local industry where things were starting to change a lot. So our original industry was actually getting a whole lot of leverage, and I had a whole range of great artists that I ended up nurturing through that venue, including Powderfinger, Screamfeeder, Custard and Regurgitator, that are four that are still around that people would know. And I actually got into doing what I do now because I had to learn everything on the job in that venue and make lots and lots of mistakes. And that's led to a sort of career educating and improving the music and other creative sectors. So I've worked for some time in a job where I was liaising with government and the creative industries on sector training and skills development, and that was at what's called an industry skills council. So we made a lot of difference to the creative sector in that role, some of it which is still around today. So particularly some of the safety courses for people setting up and running major music festivals were all implemented by my particular Queensland Industry Skills Council, so which is good to know. I've taught creative business for many years in the tertiary sector, and have had graduates that work in a lot of the major music businesses, particularly in Queensland, but all over Australia. Also places like APRA, AMCOS, and have had a lot of artists like multiple Queensland Music Award winning country artist 8-Ball Aitken, Jen Boyce from Ballpark Music was one of mine, an award-winning composer Donna Dyson, and most recently a band called The Chats. So one of the members of The Chats was taught by me as well.
I mean, I feel like that is a huge list of Aussie classic, historical, valuable artists. And what I got from that, Andrew, was just, wow, you have a lot of history and a lot of experience. It's so valuable. And I love what you said there, and that you owned it so confidently. Was I made a lot of mistakes. And I learned on the job, and I figured it out as I was going along, and I just kept improving and looking for ways to not only improve your skills, but also to improve some of those gaps that you saw in the industry.
Definitely.
And so valuable.
Yeah, definitely. It was something that I think in my studies as a graphic designer, we had one teacher who understood about business and kept impressing on us that some of us would end up in a small business, not working for somebody else. And I took a lot of that knowledge and could see that a lot of the bands were really fantastic, but not really managing their business side of their band very well. So I think that's what led me to teaching. And it was actually a flatmate who said to me one day, "You're giving all this information to these bands, but it's all one-to-one, and you're doing it for nothing, and you're doing it as part of your role in the venue. And that's great, but why don't you just write a course and go teach it?" So I did.
I love that. We all need friends like that to say, you're valuable, what you've got is valuable, what you're doing is so generous, but you should also be able to make a living from it. So I like that. We all need friends like that, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I love that, the desire to really give and support artists, and to see exactly what I'm saying, seeing the gap and saying, okay, how can we fix this? How can we be the answer to that disruption, I guess? And so I love that you do that. And I love that it's equaled this really long and winding and rich career for you. And I'm sure many, many artists, more than what you've mentioned there, have been really impacted by what you've helped them to understand about being a business, not just a creative, which is so hard to get your head around, especially if you're totally right brain and nothing left brained, or you just have never thought about that before. It can be such a big stress, right, as an artist?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I think it unless you have that understanding, when you hit a roadblock, you sometimes will just give up without realizing that it's a natural part of business and you've just got to push through.
Yeah, and sometimes, they talk about businesses, so how many of them fail. But one thing I've noticed in the music industry is that we don't give up. We just keep spending our money, keep doing the same thing that we were doing, and kind of hoping for a different result. And then 20 years, you're a bit into it, you're a bit jaded with the industry because I never got my shot, but we never actually tried anything different or learned what wasn't working and tried to do something, that might work or connect with our audience better. So we desperately need incredible coaches and people who know what they're talking about as artists to say, have you thought about this? Have you set up your ABN? Have you actually signed up for PPCA? Like these things that we don't even think about. So
definitely, yeah.
Wonderful. Well, we are in a crazy time across the world with COVID, and in the summit we're not stressing on all the negatives, but it has had an impact. And as we're going forward and we're trying to figure out what the industry will look like, what do you think are some of the biggest challenges that are facing indie early stage artists right now? And do you have any ideas or thoughts about how they can overcome those challenges or how they can face them well?
Yeah, definitely. I've been actually thinking about this a lot. And one of the things I think is, yes, there is an impact on the industry, and it's huge. And I think that particularly for indie artists and emerging artists, they probably may not know enough about the industry and its infrastructures and how it works right at the moment. But it's a good time to sit down and find out, because it's not just them that are being impacted. And I see in a lot of groups, Facebook groups and, face-to-face groups where people are really thinking about themselves and not about the wider impacts. So that's definitely one thing, to find out how it's impacting other sectors of the industry. And maybe it might help you in the long run if you lend a hand. So one thing that I've done is said to a lot of my young musician clients is, if you've got a meeting to have, maybe have it in the beer garden of a venue, because they're doing it really tough as well. Or maybe consider that sound guy or roadie that is much more impacted than you are, because they've lost all their work. So make a phone call and check in and see if they're okay. And those things, I think, will come back. So when things start to come back and get back into normal, those little services and acknowledgements that you've made to those other sectors of the industry will come back to you in droves.
And that's just kind to reach out and to say, how are you going? We've just had Are You Okay Day here in Australia. And, it's wonderful that we have that, but we need to be asking that question all the time, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, we need to celebrate the important people in our lives and not just tell them we love them on their birthday, but, every day. And so, kind of sense of, reaching out. And I love the encouragement that you were saying there, is to think about how the industry is impacted. And as an artist, you're never, and I don't, well, some people do, but I don't think we should be doing all the roles ourselves. So being songwriter and producer and musician and mixer and masterer and, all those things, because sure, you might have that capacity, but all of those jobs are industry jobs that it might just be someone down the road trying to provide for their family. They don't work for, maybe they're not, a Sony CEO, but they're
Exactly.
just a small creative business who would really desperately love to spend, some time helping you, for money, of course, with your project. And that's one way that we can really support, is not necessarily trying to do, okay, I'm going to do everything myself, but actually looking for what are the important things that I need to be done well, and then who can I get around me to help and support in that space.
Exactly. And I think, it's really important to build that team around you. And, maybe this is a good time to start researching the right people. So, when you're not gigging and you've at a bit of a loose end, it could be the time to start calling out to your friends and saying, well, who have you used, and start to have some conversations and build some relationships. The other thing I think around COVID is diversifying to move forward. So one amazing artist up here called Andrea has started a Patreon site, and has also, in her regional area, has rented a tiny little shop and set it up as a teaching business, a streaming business, little small gigs, and that has helped her keep going through COVID. So the combination of not just, oh, well, I've lost all my gigs, what do I need to do? She's actually now has a number of diverse income streams as well as gigging that has seen her through the worst of COVID, and hopefully will continue after.
Absolutely. I love that. That's something that probably we should be looking at for long term, because you might break your hand and not be able to play. It may not be COVID that stops you from gigging, but there's 100 reasons why you might not be able to do that live gig: sickness or injury or whatever. And so being able to have those multiple revenue streams is so valuable.
Yep. And then I think another challenge for indie artists, it's not necessarily COVID related, but again, something you could do something about while you are not gigging or while you're in lockdown, is that I think artists don't really know how to market well, and they don't know how to market consistently. So, and I think that's hugely important, because again, going back to the fact you are a business, hard to overcome on a low budget, but I think it can be done. And, it's just recognizing that you're a business, act as a business would. So instead of just thinking about getting on playlists and featured in blog articles, think about developing a great brand from the start. So have a professional looking logo, your brand colors, brand voice, and then make sure that everything that's presented to the public is consistent. So I love it when I go on to, say, somebody's Spotify site and everything is consistent to something that's on their website, that's on their Facebook page, it's on their Instagram page, because you can automatically recognize and identify with that artist. And that these days with tools like Canva, etc., it's not hard to get that. It's just getting that brand voice sorted out in the first place.
So what I'm hearing from a lot of what you're saying, Andrea, is we can't gig for a lot of people. I'm in Melbourne, we're closed, we can't do anything. Different parts of Australia and the world, are in different places. But when things are kind of quiet, the thing to do at that time is to start to educate yourself and to look at maybe some of your gaps. So the things that you're not doing. And if you're not sure what they are, ask someone to give you some insight into that. Would that be true? Yeah,
definitely true. Yeah. And I mean, even if you go into something like the small business sites for each state and the federal government, they even have little tools where you can do a wizard and say, what are my skills gaps around being in a business? And that will give you those ones. And then, maybe even some of your fans might be able to help you identify some of the other gaps that you've got.
Yeah, so great. So there's some wonderful tools out there, resources, but then also using your audience as market research is a perfect thing to do, because they're going to feel connected and they're going to feel, encouraged that you're actually asking them, and then also you're going to get really, really valuable content.
Exactly.
Wonderful. Yeah. Hey, I think we've already touched on a couple of these, but in your experience, as we kind of move on from some of those challenges, we've talked about having a really good brand strategy. So I think that may have been one of them. But do you have some tips or tricks or strategies for indie artists who are really wanting to get a really solid start in music? Let's go through those, because as we're saying, there's some we want to be really practical and something that people can take away. And I think that you just have a wealth of knowledge, and we'd love to hear them.
Sure. Well, I think right from the word go, really know your long-term goals from the start. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to do music as a hobby, but particularly if you're working with other people. So if you're in a band situation, it's not going to gel if one of you is doing it for a hobby and the rest are doing it professionally, and that's the goal. So be really upfront with what your motivations are and find the right people to connect with. So I've just done a lengthy mentoring session yesterday with a young singer from a band who has been talking about a lazy person in that band, and they've given him plenty of opportunities to resolve issues, and it's come now to a point where they've had to say, well, we have to let him go, but he's become a friend, so it's really, really difficult for us. And knowing that band well, my impression of that boy is that he is now frightened because he never really wanted to take it as far as the rest of them were wanting to take it, and that's why he's pulling back. And it's caused them, little bit of a hiccup. They'll get through it, but that's okay. There's nothing wrong with having music as a side hustle or a hobby. If you do want to have it professionally, explore your motivations and know that it can be really slow and moving train, and just be really prepared to be resilient and stick it out if your goal is long-term success. I know so many absolutely fantastic bands that didn't do that sticking it out, and it makes me really sad because they probably could have been world famous, and they're just really, really great artists. So, understand that if you want to do it professionally, it is a business, and building a business takes time. Yeah. My next one is networking lots and lots and lots. I think the music sector, it's probably going to come as no surprise that it's built on relationships, and you have to make sure you get out and get involved. So go and support other bands, particularly ones that you think are in your genre, because, they will then become your champions as well. Support the venues where you would like to play. So when I ran venues, people would come along to our venues, and you might have seen them 4 or 5 times, and they go, oh, we've got a band and we're just starting out. And we would put effort into helping nurture them because they were customers of our business already. And those things don't go unnoticed. So people will know if you're turning up regularly to that venue, the staff there will know. Mm-hmm. And then when you turn up and say, well, I've got a band or I'm a solo act and I'm looking for gigs, they will be more inclined to want to help you because you've been supporting their business. Go to every professional development opportunity you can, whether that's online or face-to-face. So, lots of free things are being offered at the moment by places like Support Act. If you're a member, there's also Crew Care that's associated with Support Act that have been doing some activities as well. So, take advantage of all of those. I co-produce a music conference called Turn Up, and it's named after something one of our mentors, which is was the publisher John Brommel. He always said to us, you've got to turn up. To be in it, you've got to turn up. He passed away in 2013, and we started our conference in 2014. It was just a no-brainer to name it Turn Up. But our tagline is connect, network, listen, and learn, and that's there for a reason. because they're important things that you need to do. Other things that are really good to know in your networking is a history of your local industry. So what is happening in your local community, plus your wider state, because then you'll get to know the right people to know. I also network with my local business network as well, because you never know when there's someone there who might be able to help you with something. For example, we have a wonderful lady in my local business network who's a pricing expert, and I've set her up with, I had her speak at a seminar. I've set her up with some of my creatives to talk further about their pricing on products. We have some great marketing experts. So while they might not be experts in the music industry, they're experts in what they do, and they can provide that service for you.
Wow. So good. I never thought about that. Oh, we need someone to help us with pricing. That's amazing.
Yeah. And she's absolutely wonderful, this woman. My next one is understanding everything about copyright and how royalties and music licensing works, because that is the music industry. So I do a bit of teaching, and some of my students are classical, and I say, well, even you guys need to understand copyright, because you would not be playing and learning the songs that you're learning if someone didn't write them in the first place. Understand what parts of a song constitute copyright. So it's your melody and your lyrics, and a lot of musicians don't understand that. Yep. Understand and make sure that you join the copyright collecting societies in your country, and they're easy to find. Even if you do a Wikipedia for copyright collecting societies, you'll get a Wikipedia page that's got them all on it, so easy to find. Keep your song registrations and your live performance information updated. So make sure that you're putting those in regularly, because that's how you earn money. And just that understanding that copyright's the foundation of the music industry, and it's essential to all sectors of the industry making a living. So if you filter down right down to, maybe someone's VA that's working for a music manager or a publicist, even that person who might be doing 3 or 4 hours a week, the only way that publicist can pay them is because they're getting paid by somebody who is creating content. Mm-hmm. So, it's really, really important to understand that. And make sure you nurture your copyrights and respect those of others. So if you're playing a couple of covers in your sets, make sure you put them on your live performance returns.
Love that.
Yeah, and research how income can be made from a great song, because it's a really valuable thing. So you can license your songs, and you really need to get a handle around how that works. Even if you're not quite ready yet, it's still valuable information to have. I have one client, an artist who no longer performs, but he makes a full-time living from his copyrights, and a really good living, particularly one song. So, wow. All it took was one good song. And that song is the current theme for ABC Kids. So if you have kids and you watch ABC Kids, you will know the song. And that's enabled him to maintain a full-time career in music. Mm-hmm. So I think, it's something that's really, really important. And then just quickly adding on from there, the other form of IP that you may need to know about down the track is trademarking. So you may want to trademark your name and logo. I think my next one is knowing who your audience is. So every business has a target audience. Doesn't matter if you're a solo artist, a band, you might be in the mindset to think, well, I'm not really a business, am I? Yes, you are. And you will have a target market and an ideal or niche customer. And that customer will look like something. So as well as thinking about the subject matter of your songs, because that will attract customers, but also think about what makes you unique. What do you like and dislike? What books do you read? What movies? What TV shows do you like? Do you like sport? So what do you do for fun as well? And that will help you connect with potential fans. And then you can use the the tools that are available to us, so or your data from social media and other platforms, to refine who your fans are, where they live, what age groups they are, and you would use all that in a mix to find out who they are. To give you an example of how that's used, when I ran venues and when I run gigs and events, I might talk to the artist and say, well, tell me about your fans, and I might find an appropriate sponsor for that event that's aligned to those fans. So it might be that I know that there is a craft brewery who've got a new gluten-free beer out, and that particular band, all the members are really fairly health conscious, and they practice yoga, and they have that message in their songs and their social media and their overall day-to-day activities. So they're attracting a certain type of person, and we could market to that new gluten-free beer and say, well, if you give us some product to use on the day, we can guarantee that there will be some interest in this market, and you might pick up a few more customers. Also helps you with what products, to what merch, what do your fans love collecting vinyl, do they love tea towels, would they buy a t-shirt or a hat? So knowing the types of things that your customers might buy it also helps with all that as well. And there's no reason you can't ask questions to the fans you've got already to try to gain that data as well. Then going on from there, you need to make sure you keep connecting with those audiences. So I think it's really important to understand that you should connect through products you own, as well as social media and your streaming services, because we don't own those. Yeah. And they can be taken away from us, or the algorithms changed, or even made into a paid service at any time. So we don't know what might happen with those products. And I even know a couple of not-for-profit groups around my area. So not-for-profit arts groups were using a particular web type networking service that was free. And that really was a strategy by that company to have it as a taster, that it then became paid and was much more expensive than just having a website of their own. But they got locked into that service because they built their whole brands around that particular service. So it became a real issue for them. So definitely have your own website or mailing list, something that you can control, that you can get information out to your fans. Yeah. And again, if you've done that work in knowing who your audience is, you'll know the best way to get to them. So my fans are my clients. All my younger clients like to talk to me through Facebook Messenger. I've just got to go with that and manage that. So that means that, some of my older clients are email or phone. My younger clients are generally Facebook Messenger. And that is how I communicate. But I also have my own tools that I own that I communicate with them as well. And that's really important. Yeah. And then what you do is you channel your fans from the services you don't own to the ones you do. And that could be competition or shout outs at a gig or asking them questions. So to give you an example, I have a gig that I'll be running next year, and I have asked that venue to do maybe a burger that's particularly named after that gig. And what I'm going to do is say, okay, we're running competition. Someone will get free tickets and a free burger if you tell me what should go on that burger. And I will, they will have to sign up to the mailing list to get a place in that competition. Yeah. So I'm moving these people from free platforms that I don't own into something that I can control.
Awesome. I love that idea.
Yeah. I'm hoping he'll do the free burger. I'm sort of going, this is someone who's a long-term friend, and I'm going, please, I want to do the burger, And it's a strategy. So I think when they understand the strategy, they'll go with it. My next one is one that I've seen a lot lately. Used to happen to me a bit when I ran venues, but it seems to be a lot more prevalent now, and it is really concerning. And that is for artists to work with the venues that they perform at, not against them. It's in a lot of platforms on social media, I see a trend of artists speaking really negatively about venues. Some of that's probably got to do with COVID and not understanding that the venues are just as badly hit as the artists. And yes, you'd acknowledge that there are some venues out there that are either not very good at what they do or are there purely to take advantage of artists. When I ran venues, I'd say, well, just don't play at those places, because if everyone stopped doing it, then there would be more nurturing put into the venues that are doing the right thing. That will build them up. That will ensure their continued success, and you will have great places to play that look after you. But I think a lot of what I'm seeing is that the artists are expecting the venues to take all the weight in marketing shows, and that's just not feasible for a venue. So as someone who's run venues, I know a bit about all the artists that I work with. The ones that were really regular, I would know their audiences inside out, but most of them I'm not going to. So if you've done all that work at knowing who your audience is and connecting with them, the next step is making sure that you're marketing directly to your fans, which is something that the venue really can't do. So they're doing just very generalized marketing. And if you don't market, that show won't be as successful as it could have been. So I used to say to my bands, if I knew a band put maximum effort in and they got 10 people to a show, I would say, well, something's happened. You know, there might be something else on, or there was a thunderstorm and no one wanted to go out, because that's a very Queensland thing, where people do not want to go out when it's raining. And I know you've put the ultimate effort in, so you will get other gigs from us. But if I know a band got 150 people into the room and didn't put any effort in, even though that's a reasonably good result, I would be disappointed, because I'd know they could do better.
Sure.
So yeah, it's up to you to understand and connect with your fans in a way that will best serve yourself, the venue, and your fans.
What an incredible list, Andrea. That is so beautiful, so helpful and practical. I really love just how that kind of took us through. And there were some really key points around, you've got to know your audience. You've got to understand how to reach them. You've got to have spent time getting to know them. I love that. And I'd love to touch base on this whole thing of expecting other people to do what you're not willing to do. So you talked about that with the venues, but then also around kind of like expecting everyone to buy your album, but then you never, you know, or come to your shows, but you never go to other people's shows, or you never buy their album, you never, you know, download their song on iTunes or something like that. Is that something that you're seeing a lot, or how do we?
Yeah, it certainly does happen with some people. And I think I'm actually seeing the opposite, where a couple of the acts that I'm working with, one in particular that I can think of, you know, starting a band, so they really started last year. So starting a band during COVID is probably not ideal. But these guys have gone leaps and bounds because they attended all the networking events they could. So anything that was happening, they went to. They researched and connected with bands online that they really liked and sort of sent them a message and said, hey, we're in a band and we just wanted to say that, you know, we found your music because we were looking at what other people who were doing locally, and we really love you, and would, you know, when lockdowns finish, we'll come out and see you play. And then they did. So now they're getting lots of gigs because they put the effort into being seen and going out to shows, and just being generally nice people as well, I think. And, you know, even I used to manage a band years ago that a couple of the guys have got another band they've got a launch on in a couple of weeks, and all the guys from that band, they don't know them. They've heard a couple of their songs, but they said, you know, given that it's their guys from the band that you used to manage and they seem like really nice guys, we're going to go to their show. So they're not expecting anything from it, but they just realise that you have to go and support the industry get somewhere in the industry.
Yeah.
And I think, that's really important. It also helps you understand what's going on, I think, and particularly if you're supporting other local people, you can go to that venue and, well, here's some bands that sound very similar to us, and this is how they manage their sound, and this is what I will need to think about when I go play there. But it helps you build relationships as well.
Yeah.
So an example of that, I'm working with a young band that added a couple of extra members, so they've rebranded. And again, last year, probably not ideal time to do it, but I said to them, well, with your new sound, you make me a list of 3 or 4 artists locally that you think you could play a gig with. And now I've said, okay, what's the strategy to go out, particularly when things start opening up again? What is your strategy going to be to go out and actually start engaging with those acts, with the goal being, for those guys, there's 2 goals. One is to get some supports. The other one is one of the bands has a really good relationship with a local studio called Airlock. The owner of Airlock is Ian Hogue from Powderfinger. He loves this band, and the young band that I'm working with are very, very similar in style. So my goal is to get them eventually recording at Airlock, because obviously Airlock are doing a really great job with this other band, very, very similar stylistically. So if they start going out to gigs, they will no doubt meet Ian somewhere at one of those gigs with that band. They can probably throw him some music, and I think if he really likes them, he will start nurturing them as well.
I love that. Yeah, that connection.
And I know Ian really well. Obviously, I've worked with Powderfinger when they first started out, but I'm not going to go to Ian and go, you've got to listen to this band. I think it's up to them. I might say, I'm working with this band, but, I'm not going to force something on him, because they've got to learn how to do that themselves.
Sure.
And I have one last little suggestion that's come from some of the older musos that I work with, that have been doing it for a long time. And they have said to me that when they started out, recording was so expensive and so time-sucking and laborious that one of the things that they always wished they could do was do lots of demos of their music, try different versions of songs, because you can just, get the band around. If you're a band, sit in front of the computer for a day, rent a hall and take it there if you're really noisy, and spend a day and do, a whole lot of songs. Don't think about it being a finished product, just so you can then get some feedback from both other bands that other people in the industry, and even your fans. So you will have trusted fans that will give you not just it's great, but they will actually give you considered opinion and definitely use them. And then you can actually refine both your sound. You can teach yourself how to record, and that then saves you time and money when you go into a professional studio to record, because you're already familiar with the process, and what you might need to do, and how you like your sounds to be displayed in a recorded product. You can take those demos to the engineers and producers and say, well, really, this is what we're trying to aim for. We're not an expert in this by any means, but this is what we're trying to get at. And I think it also helps you improve the structure and dynamics of your songs as well. So you could go in and say, well, that maybe listening to that back recorded, that bridge doesn't work so well there, and do I take it out, or do I put it somewhere else, or do I maybe have another chorus in here first, or maybe this song's a little bit too long and we need to restructure it in some way. And by getting that feedback from a diverse range of people, that will really help you refine and structure your songs well.
fabulous tip and trick from people who've been around for a while. And it is so true that studio time is expensive, and you don't want to waste that time. You want to make the most of it. So I love that idea to do a bit of that planning if you can beforehand. Wonderful. Hey, as we kind of come to the end, I feel like we could be talking for a lot longer, Andrea, but as we kind of come to the end of this, every speaker in the summit, we're asking the question of, what are you doing around mental health? How are you taking care of yourself? Whether you do it all the time, because I don't do my things all the time, and whether you have bad days or not, but do you have some things that you're doing to take care of yourself in this challenging time?
Yeah, it's something, that pre-COVID, it's probably like, I probably don't do stuff all the time. One thing I've always done is go to at least one Pilates class a week, because I think that's something really helpful to de-stress. And particularly when I was running venues and not finishing work till 4 a.m., and then having to get up, and then, of course, you don't just go to the venue. You've got to think about, who you're booking, your marketing, your rosters of your staff. So it was a very, very busy job. And that really helped me have just that carved out time to myself with no phone, nobody else around, just go to the class and get involved in something else. Yeah. Since COVID hit, one of the key ways is a lot of investing in professional development. So I am currently working on a new product to educate businesses on copyright and IP, because I am a copyright nerd. I love it. So when I was a graphic designer, I had some work stolen, and I had some really good advice around that, and made it a mission to learn about copyright and how it works. And I've realized, probably not so much with the arts sector, because people do have a little bit of a handle on it, but there's so many people in small businesses that don't. And so really this product is actually to protect people in the arts from small businesses misusing their creative work, but also to nicely educate those people around respect, but also the fact that they have creative stuff as well. So what I've done is done 4 IP courses through the World Intellectual Property Organization. So that sounds like a lot, but they were 4 little short courses that sort of all built on each other. And that's given me, while I had the really solid understanding around copyright, and I've been teaching it for 20 years, I think, it's given me that better, broader understanding about the other forms of IP, particularly around trademarking, which, could be important for artists down the track, and could be something that I could be helping my students organise. I've done the mental health first aid training that may come around again through Support Act. So that one, because I'm a member of Crew Care, which is the crew organisation that's aligned to Support Act, I got it free through them. So that was pretty wonderful. And Support Act may have it again, as may the various state industry bodies in Australia. So it's definitely worth looking out for, because it was a great course. And that was more to support my own mental health, to support my clients. But there is an option to do a further course and become a mental health first aid trainer. And I'm currently working with somebody on a music project that is, and she doesn't do it in the arts, interestingly enough. She does it for other businesses, but it's something that maybe I might explore a little bit down the track. The other thing I've done is I believe in trying to be positive. Some of my best friends are in venues, because obviously I've come from the venue sector, and I use venues for a lot of my projects. And I realise that venues, crews, and musicians have been really, really badly affected through COVID, as has the broader creative sector. Because of the work that I did when I worked for the Industry Skills Council, I've realised that the governments are no longer getting data. So most of those Industry Skills Councils disappeared nearly a decade ago. And governments are not getting the data, and they do not understand the creative sector at all. So I have been working on strategies to support the wider industry and to educate government on the ecosystem that is the music sector. I have this massive, I think it's about A2 sized flow chart on the ecosystem of the music industry that I have been having meetings both face-to-face and online with various sectors, and trying to explain to them that we are an economy that contributes to the broader Australian economy, not just a tiny little group of musicians and venues, because I think that's what they think we are, and that's obviously not what we are. And I'm working on a couple of projects that will hopefully help get the industry back working. So one of them is slightly controversial, really. I've been working with a medical company to help them tidy up a course around COVID leadership. And we are going to try and partner with a venue to run some sort of project that will try, hopefully, help the industry get back to normal. Yeah. So some sort of research project. So I think that's helped too. So I know I'm actually doing something. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's really helped my mental health, because I know I'm not just sitting back. I am actually doing something practical every week to try to help the industry get back to normal.
Wow. So, I mean, I'm blown away by all the stuff you're working on, and I'm definitely interested in some IP and copyright courses. I'll be hitting you up. Let's talk about that. So if artists are going, oh, Andrea, I would love to know about that copyright stuff, or I'd love to figure out how I could connect with you and find out about you, what kind of services do you offer in general, and then kind of more specifically that artists could grab a hold of, and how can they engage with you?
Yeah, sure. So really my more general offering around the creative sector, well, I have two. The first one, I do grant writing. So I have a grant writing service where I both write grants and I assist with the strategic thinking around the planning and goal setting. So if you might be looking at long-term projects, I can then say, well, this is where a grant might come into play, or this is where you can use crowdfunding, or this is where you might need to connect with this person. So current example is an artist who is looking at starting a TV show, an online TV show, and I've said, yes, there could be some grants around, but first go and connect with our screen industry body and have a chat to them and see what support we can also get from them to inform those grants. Because even if it's as simple as a letter of support from that screen industry body to say, we think this project is great and we will support it, and we will give them some mentoring when they go and apply for the grant. So that's the sort of things I do there. And I also advise on maybe changing up and leveling up your projects to make sure they're offering the diversity and variety that the grant providers are looking for. I run regular educational seminars on creative business. They're called The Business of Being Creative. And again, they're more general for the whole arts industry, but they're things like tax. I mentioned the pricing lady before, marketing, well-being, anything that I think my audience will have as a gap. I will try and find the right speaker and bring them into the mix. And once this year's over, I'm looking at maybe rolling them out into some other regions and maybe even doing an online version of those as well. I also co-produce an annual music conference called Turn Up, which has been held on the Sunshine Coast since 2014. This year we can't do the conference because of COVID, and it's just purely numbers in venues. It's not feasible, but we do have some online PD sessions that are rolling out through our Facebook page in the next month or so, that we very kindly had some artists involved in. So that was interesting. We worked with some artists that showcased for us and were which would normally be part of our conference, and we didn't want to give that up. So those artists agreed to participate in some professional development as well, which we filmed and will roll out soon. And my music specific program is a program called Fully Booked, and that's a mentoring service where I assist with long-term career goals. So that's anything and everything. So I might work with an artist on helping with a release strategy and finding the right publicists that can help them roll out their releases. I work with a costumer and stylist who can costume up artists for video clips and media. I work alongside other colleagues, so we might do things like helping write a bio. So it could be really micro level or more macro level. And then I also do sometimes emergency stuff as well. So I have clients who'll just say, we've worked together before, so I might have done some career development work with them, and they'll ring me if they've got a problem and say, how do we work through this issue, and we'll work through those issues. And as I said, I'm currently working on a book and potentially some training for creatives and other businesses on copyright and IP.
Such a broad range of ways that you're serving artists, and Andrea, it's been so lovely to connect with you. I feel like we could, as I was saying, talk for ages, but we're going to round this up. We're going to pop all of your incredible suggestions in a downloadable under this video, as well as the website and Facebook pages and all that kind of thing. And I really hope that artists that are watching right now go, this lady has an incredible wealth of knowledge and experience, and is just so generous with her time, and I love that. So any final thoughts as we wrap this up, Andrea?
I think really want to say, don't give up at the moment. It's really, really tough, but things will get better. And I think, there's lots of great people in the industry that are in it for the long term, and they're there to help. The services that we have in Australia, and I'm sure people watching overseas will have similar ones, just go and find out and engage with all those services that are there to help you, like Support Act, like APRA AMCOS, like Crew Care for the crews, and your local industry bodies. And just be assured that things will get better, and our industry, while it might take a little while, will come back, and it will come back if we're all positive and we help support each other and engage in whatever we can to make sure that it comes back nice and strong.
I say yes and amen to that, Andrea. So wonderful. It's been a pleasure having you on the summit, and I'm just so glad to connect with you. And thanks for being a part of it.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me, Kate.